Joining us to unpack the issues, the politics, and the implications for Nigerians, we've got the former Minister of Sports, Mr. Solomon Dalon. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Chamberlain, thank you very much for this opportunity again.
Yes. So, that briefing that happened yesterday, before we get to the issues, could you give us an idea of the background of those who were there? Is it a political party or individuals who come together as a movement? What's the nomenclature of that gathering?
Well, maybe what's the chemistry of that gathering? It's a gathering of Nigerians who are concerned about, the state of the nation, governance, and politics. And we felt that we cannot maintain silence in the face of all these things that are happening, because as Edmund Burke rightly said, all it takes for evil to flourish is for good people to do nothing about it. And so we have watched the country, derail into the abyss, politically, economically, even spiritually. Nigerians are depressed. Nigerians are frustrated. And we felt that no, history will not judge us right, knowing too well and seeing clearly the direction this administration is driving this country, for us to fold our arms and pretend that, oh, maybe I'm not affected, or I'm not suffering it as much as other Nigerians, so we should be quiet. That is the motivation.
So, when the group, how did it happen? Did the group come together, or it was individual observations? Because there was that mention about what was gazetted is not the same thing that was passed by the National Assembly. How did it come to that conclusion?
It all started when some of us took the initiative of reaching out to others. What is happening in this country, are you comfortable with it? And then that was how we got connected, and we discovered that, oh, there are so many people out there that are thinking the way we are. So we said, okay, if that's the issue, why not come together and review the state of the nation? And so we started our meetings and honestly reviewed the state of the nation. And the group is made up of people from almost all the political parties. There are APC members in that group. There are the PDP that is struggling with survival also in the group. SDP, ADC, ABGA. So it's a conglomeration of people with common interests. The country. Do we allow the country to continue the way it is?
So for now, is the group here to stay, or what?
In fact, that was one of the issues we raised before we even continued. Whether we were just going to be like Jew, the normal political Jew in Nigeria, that will just come up, raise an issue and fizzle up. And we said no. We decided on comprehensive methods of dealing with the issue, and we're going to be even engaging the government, we're going to be even holding the government accountable. We'll deploy so many legitimate actions, including mass action, to mobilize Nigerians to hold this government to account, which is a civil responsibility of every Nigerian.
Indeed, clearly every Nigerian needs to be up and doing in terms of occupying their seats as citizens, responsible citizens of this country. But I'm a little curious as to some of the issues that you have raised, because prominent amongst them is this issue of tax. And just before that time, some people will say, okay, well, the issue of subsidy removal was raised. The fact that we've also had the floating of the naira, so to speak, all of which has, altered the calculations of many Nigerians and left a lot of Nigerians much, much poorer than they used to be. Let's not even go to inflation rates and what have you, which they also believe is some form of taxation. In your own estimation, because I know that this conversation around subsidy removal has been on for a very long time. A lot of people were, told that this was what we needed. This was the pain we needed to go through before we could actually begin to see light at the end of the tunnel. For you, as somebody who is also very aware of the workings of government, having been a government official yourself, what are your thoughts with regards to when governments decide to implement policies that are going to be painful, but really do not have any end date in sight? Government cannot say that, oh, give it 3 years, 4 years, this is when it's going to end. What exactly do you think needs to be happening within that period of transition when the policy is done and, while the people are going through the motions, pending whenever it is that there ought to be light at the end of the tunnel?
The admission by this administration that withdrawal of fuel subsidy was the only option. It's a demonstration of poverty of ideas and knowledge. Because in life there are so many alternatives. And so for them to single out the issue also define the vested interest they have in the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy. So from day one...
You didn't support that?
I don't even see it as that which was necessary at that point in time. Because if we know as a fact that the subsidy regime has been investigated by the National Assembly, the fraud has been established, companies were indicted, meaning that the problem is not even the withdrawal of subsidy, but the subsidy management itself. And this government was not interested in holding those who had defrauded this country many years, but chose to offer a sanctuary for them with a sweeping statement. Subsidy has been withdrawn. For me, it's an endorsement of fraud. So I didn't, from the beginning, accept the fact that subsidy withdrawal was an issue. Yet, granted, it has been done. It was done in a manner that demonstrated again that the president at that time does not even understand the workings of the government and the complex nature of the country called Nigeria. He needed consultation. As at that time he made the statement, there was no government. It was only the president and the vice that had been sworn in, and that wasn't government. A government means the cabinet, advisors, policymakers consulted all together on a decision like that. It wasn't done. An individual just expressed, he said, Nigerians swallowed it with the hope that something was going to come out of it. Many years after, nothing had come out of it except poverty, hunger, inflation, insecurity. The amazing part of it is that this government has never given account. I mean, look at Abacha, a military leader, withdrew 5% of fuel subsidy and was accountable. He set up a trust fund, handed over the funds, it was managed for the benefit of Nigerians. If we have withdrawn the whole subsidy, Nigerians should have been living like people more than Dubai. Because we understood that huge revenues had come into government. But it is also a known fact that huge revenue and also huge debt burden. Because the borrowings of this government from 2003 to now doubles what Buhari borrowed in 8 years. So the question is, in whose interest is the new tax regime? To now strangulate the remaining life in Nigerians to service those in government. Or there is a noble intention of moving the country forward, which is very, very opaque and obscure.
But isn't this a little too late? Because we saw the conversation that preceded the tax regime, before it eventually, was passed. We saw the initial opposition by northern governors, for instance, and then much later, the Nigerian Governors Forum. However, the president said whatever opposition there was against or whatever objections there were to this tax regime should be done on the floor of the National Assembly. There was a public hearing, and eventually there was a compromise, and they were able to get everyone on board, at least those in the National Assembly, to be able to pass through this new tax law. The question a number of people will ask is, where was the national opposition movement when all of these conversations were going on?
Of course, we were not on board then, but there was no compromise. The conspiracy in the process of enacting this tax law is what now gave birth to the national opposition movement.
Conspiracy?
Yes, it's conspiracy.
Why
because
do you say so?
there was indeed no compromise. Now, that conspiracy which was concealed, God has now expressed his presence in favor of Nigerians, because we now know that the entire process is now fraudulent. With the alarm raised by a member of the House of Reps that even the so-called compromise copy of the bill passed had been mutilated on its transit to the villa. And the mutilation of a legislation passed by a National Assembly on transit is a treasonable offense, because it's a usurpation of the constitutional right of the National Assembly. The president only has the right to reject, make observations, and return it to the National Assembly within 30 days. The National Assembly, if convinced with the observation of the president, will make amendment and to the Senate. But we now have a cabal, which we have been denying. You can see the activities of the cabal. They have ambushed now a law in transit and mutilated it. Very soon, they will also ambush the Constitution, and they will mutilate it, and they will now coronate certain persons as monarchy, and Nigeria will be thrown into anarchy.
What if the government says the movement is jumping the gun, because they could tomorrow say, well, we're not implementing any policy that was not passed by the National Assembly? And besides, does the movement also think that the National Assembly will look the other way in this matter?
A gun in the hands of a bandit does not require any rule. In fact, you will have to jump the gun, because you know what he will do with the gun. So this movement has followed the antecedents of this government right from the beginning. And we can predict what they will do, because from what we saw and monitored them in the past, they have not disappointed us. So jumping the gun in the circumstance is the most healthy thing to do in favor of Nigerians.
Yeah, but yesterday we understand that a member of the House of Representatives raised some of these concerns on the floor. That will suggest that they are not glossing over the matter. If the FG actually go gazette a wrong copy and to implement a wrong copy, it means that, well, they are keeping their eyes on the ball.
Well, individual members of the National Assembly still have their integrity and they will defend it. But the institution of the National Assembly is captured. So, he has raised it and has elected Nigerians. So he has exercised the democratic power. Well, the minority will have a say, but the majority will always have their way.
Okay, let me ask you though, have you read the tax laws?
I have not gone through it, the tax law completely.
Yes, so but what objections do you then have with the law?
In fact, the entire tax law, from the fundamental principle of the tax law, introduce a regime that does not benefit the Nigerian people. Rather, it targets the same political elites who have been enjoying the patronages of the Nigerian state.
It targets political elites.
Yes.
Which you're one of.
I'm not a political elite. I don't know how.
Should you have a problem if it targets?
I don't know how I'm qualified for it.
But does it target? I mean, the fact that you're on this program, some people say that already, and you're a former minister, or you're a former minister.
Yeah.
You represented the whole of Plateau State in the federal executive cabinet.
Fine.
In that capacity.
Fine.
Already makes you a political elite. And I'm wondering whether or not this battle really about the Nigerian people, when you haven't really read the tax laws.
In fact, even if it benefits me as a qualified political elite, according to your definition, the fact that it is against the Nigerian people does not prevent me from fighting.
How is it against the Nigerian people? That's the question I'm asking.
Well, if you look at the entire tax attitude of this government from the beginning, taking the withdrawal of fuel subsidy, the floating of the naira, the increase of electricity tariff, the increase in bank charges, the increase in data. If you summarize all these increases, the highest beneficiaries of this are the common people. electricity is needed by the Cuban people to power their microeconomy. This has been made impossible for them. Therefore, the principle of this same new tax regime cannot be different from the attitude of this government.
So the basis upon which you oppose this is based on suspicion?
Not at all. A law that has been reduced into writing cannot be suspicious.
No, but you haven't read it.
For me, I've not read all of it, but others have read.
Well, because
others have read.
For those who have
if
read
others have not read it, the National Assembly member would have not raised the issue. And mind you, is a member of this group.
Yeah, the person who raised the issue talked about discrepancies. They're two different things.
Of course.
They talked about discrepancies in what they passed and what was gazetted. I mean, clearly, if there will be any conspiracy, it will mean that members of the National Assembly were complicit in foisting a law that was not going to be in favor of Nigerians on Nigerians. But he is now raising an alarm that what has been gazetted and what is making the rounds in the Gazette is not the same thing as what has been passed. Now, we've heard that the Speaker says that matter will be handled today, and a number of Nigerians we're certainly tuning our eyes there to see what exactly will happen in the National Assembly, and also how the executive arm of government will respond to this. But if what you're saying is that you're suspecting that based on everything that's happened so far in this administration, that all you have seen so far is an increase, an unbearable increase, then you are suspicious that this new law is going to be another increase, a further increase on Nigerians. That is basically the basis of your opposition.
And in fact, on the motion that has been raised, it is completely established that there's even no law at all. Because whatever would have been passed by the National Assembly is not before the public. The mutilated or gazetted copy now is also something that is suspicious. So the entire process of whatever is called now the new tax regime is wrapped in a controversy of suspicion. So nobody will actually say this is what it is.
But what about some of the comments that Mr. Taiwo Ijile has been talking about? We'll just put up a little bit, some of them, so that you could just have a look at it and see if you agree or otherwise about this. He did say only recently that you pay less or no tax if you are in the bottom 98% of income earners. Food will cost less because VAT on food, education, and healthcare will be removed. Small companies will pay 0% corporate tax and will be exempt from VAT. Large companies will pay lower corporate tax and will enjoy VAT credits on their costs. In short, he says, everyone, individuals, SMEs, and large companies benefit from a reduced tax burden. Do you agree with all of this?
My attitude as an individual to anything that this government is saying is that it rules by propaganda. And it is obvious even from this entire process. Because you can see the National Assembly saying something different from the mutilated version was saying something different. So for me, I don't waste my time on whatever this government says, except I see them doing it practically. Because there is nothing they have given Nigerians, whether in writing, that turned out to be exactly the same. I'll give you an example. They offered engagement of Nigerians during the process of the evolution of this tax law. Engagement of Nigerians. And what we saw was the political manipulation of governors by the same federal government. Even when the governors will go before the federal government and say something different, they come out to say another thing differently. So we have been ruled by a communication system of this administration, manner by this administration that does not suggest confidence of the citizens. So as a person, all these things they are saying, I do not believe in it because there is nothing they have said and they have done it.
So the thing is, I mean, you could speak about the politics of it, but the group, because the government got tax consultants, tax professionals to craft and look at all of these laws before they then went on and then came up with what they have now. Did the group equally get tax professionals to also have a look at this and give us their professional perspective on the matter?
No. Well, I don't want to dismiss the industry invested by the professionals in the entire process. But what we have basically done is to raise an alarm. And we will definitely get to that point which you said, because in our next engagement, we intend to recruit more professionals to re-examine this particular piece of legislation very, very well and come up with something very concrete. That is why we ask for the suspension of it.
Yeah, but isn't that press briefing or the presser somehow premature? Or because you have people, if you are calling for the government to suspend it, they will tell you, look, the horse has since bolted from the stable. If it's law, on what basis are we going to suspend it if you can't give us any professional reason or at least tax reasons why we should?
That's why I said it's not even premature. We have raised an alarm. But like I said, the credibility of the entire process, while we were asking for the suspension, the credibility has been...
Which is what? The gazetted part of it?
You. It has been contested.
That's what the National Assembly said they will look at.
If they look at it, and then at the end of the day, establish that the copy has been mutilated, what will be of the legislation?
Can't they simply just gazette the proper one? Does it take 1 year to do that? It doesn't take long, does it?
No. I think you are
assuming that happened.
Yes, you are downplaying the whole thing. Because trust now had been squandered in the whole process. You need to rebuild that trust, because it means most of the things transmitted by the National Assembly, some of them undergo what has happened now. And this might be not the only one that they have been involved in. So we are yet to hear the stories of the mutilation of legislation. And I want the National Assembly not to end only on looking at the tax law, but to also review other sensitive legislation that they have been sent, because it does appear that they would have also suffered the same fate.
So is the group planning to meet anytime soon to see what next?
Of course, we have a plan for regular meetings, as regular as weekly.
But the fear some Nigerians have is that this group will eventually metamorphose into perhaps a political group or political party.
No, it's going to be very difficult, because looking at the background of the people that gather, we are not motivated by mere politics, but the conviction that we needed to do something. And it's going to be very difficult to get people from this background coming in to agree into a political party, because some of them are even holding political offices in their party that is in government. So it will be difficult for them to just move and join us because of political convenience.
All right, Mr. Solomon Dalong, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, well, back in a moment. Stay with us.